So the Grail in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 is an artifact that you dig out of the ground, you take it to your town, and it adds a new building to the town. That new building will provide 5,000 gold per turn and a 50% increase to your creature growth. And based on that bonus effect, I'm going to be ranking all the Grail buildings from worst to best. A couple of disclaimers before we get into it. Number one, obviously this is just my opinion, don't take it too seriously. And number two, this will be based on the Shadow of Death version of the game, which is the last official version of the game, and not the Horn of the Abyss fan expansion. So let's get into it. So the last place is tough because there's a whole category of Grail buildings that could go here, but I'm going to go in particular for the Guardian of Earth of the Dungeon Town as the worst of them all. The category I'm referring to are those Grail buildings which provide a bonus stat boost to your heroes when they're defending from a siege. In practice, the Grail should give you enough momentum to go out and attack. It's unlikely that you would actually defend many sieges, so these buildings are extremely situational. The rather terrifying looking Guardian of Earth provides plus 12 spell power to a defending hero, and that's actually a lot lower than any other Grail bonus, and there are no additional effects to make up for it. So not only is it unlikely to actually come into play, it's also not always that significant when it does. However, I should mention that a possible reason the boost is so low is because it does synergize really well with Dungeon's Mana Vortex building, which doubles your spell points. Taken together, they will make your spell casting a lot better, but taken on its own, the Guardian of Earth is nothing special. For 8th place, I'm going to go with the Warlord's Monument of the Stronghold town, which provides plus 20 attack to a defending hero. It's a significantly bigger effect than the Guardian of Earth, but it's still just too situational for me to rank it any higher than that. Next up is the Grail building of the Fortress town, the Carnivorous plant, which increases the attack and defense of defending heroes by 10 each. It's pretty debatable if this actually deserves to be ranked any higher than the Warlord's Monument, because it's the same total increase to your skills. I've ranked it higher purely because a wider spread of stats might help give you a little bit more strategic flexibility in a siege defense scenario, but in practice there's not much in it. In 6th place is Inferno's Deity of Fire, and now we've reached the buildings that actually do something outside of siege defenses. The Deity of Fire changes every week to the week of the Imp, which increases the growth of Imps and Familiars by 15. As much as I like the unique effect, unfortunately Imps and Familiars are pretty bad creatures. The good news is the extra Imps can be sacrificed and resurrected as demons by Pit Lords as part of the demon farming strategy, and that might net you an extra 1 or 2 demons per week. Overall it's fairly inconsequential, but at least it's a benefit you can actually carry around the map. The next 2 Grail buildings are in a pretty similar scenario to the Stronghold and Fortress buildings, in that they're 2 very similar effects, and picking one over the other is a bit like splitting hairs. With that said, I'm going to go with Rampart's Grail building, the Spirit Guardian, which increases the luck of your heroes by 2. It's not a huge effect, and it's not always reliable, but at least you can carry it around the map, and at least it's going to make your heroes' fights a little bit easier on average. The Colossus of the Castle Town is the same as the Spirit Guardian, except it gives plus 2 to morale instead of luck. Most people would argue that morale is generally going to be better than luck, because it can kick in even when you're just moving instead of attacking. It can let you target multiple creatures in one turn. It also gives you a little bit more leeway to mix different types of units together without having to worry too much about the morale penalty. So all in all, the effect of the Colossus probably slightly outweighs the effect of the Spirit Guardian. Now, while I did say the video is based on Shadow of Death, I should mention the Cove town, which is added by Horn of the Abyss. Cove's Grail building is the Lodestar, and I will mention that I would probably rank it here. The Lodestar causes all your creatures to treat all terrain as their native terrain. That gives plus 1 attack, defense, and most importantly speed to all of your creatures in battle. Because that extra speed will affect your slowest creature, it's also going to help your hero move slightly further on the adventure map. So it's a little bit like getting expert pathfinding for free on all your heroes. Now we're up to the 3rd best Grail building in my opinion, and the effects are starting to get very strong. The Soul Prison of Necropolis increases the necromancy skill of all your heroes by 20%. This is a little bit confusing, because it doesn't increase your necromancy rate by a proportion of 20%, it's more like a straightforward plus 20 to your current necromancy percentage. So, for example, Expert Necromancy gives you a necromancy rate of 30%, and with the Soul Prison it doesn't go up to 36%, it goes up by 20 percentage points to 50%. Bear in mind that the necromancy skill is already considered pretty overpowered by most players, so that extra 20% is a huge boost. In 2nd place, I would go with the Skyship of the Tower Town. Similarly to the bottom ranked Grail buildings, this will help you in siege battles by boosting a primary skill. In this case, the defender will get plus 15 knowledge, but that's pretty much irrelevant. The real benefit is that the Skyship also reveals the entire map to the owner. So that means you know exactly where your opponents are, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what strategies they're going for, you're going to know where they're at their weakest, you're going to know where the best unclaimed artifacts are, and so on. It's safe to say there are very few situations where that effect isn't going to be hugely beneficial, but in my opinion it's still not the best grail building. That honour goes to the Aurora Borealis of the Conflux town. The Aurora Borealis fills your mage guild with every spell in the game, even if your mage guild is only level 1. Obviously it goes without saying that certain spells can be absolutely decisive in whether or not you win a game, but this building gives you access to everything, and it's pretty difficult to argue that some of the more low-ranked grail buildings can even come close to comparing. In Horn of the Abyss they have nerfed it slightly, so that it only gives you access to spells corresponding to the level of your mage's guild. That's a little more reasonable, but I'm not sure it's enough to actually knock the Aurora Borealis off the top of the pile. In conclusion, if you get the Grail, you've pretty much already won the game, so pretty much everything I've talked about in this video doesn't really matter. You might as well just have fun with whichever one you do get. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thanks for watching guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.